Hello, and welcome to my channel, where I talk about books. Yeah, good enough. So this year, I challenged myself to read as many books as possible, and unlike my previous New Year's resolutions, this one actually came to fruition. So I decided to kind of unpack that and rank the top 5 books that I read this year. So a little bit of restrictions I put on myself. I didn't choose any books that were in the middle of a series. I only chose, if it was in a series, the first book in that series. I didn't try to distinguish between which book was better. And I also want this list to be kind of like an entry point into any of these series. And then also, obviously, standalones were okay. I did not allow myself to choose any Wheel of Time, even though that's a lot of what I've been reading this year. Because I'm in the middle of the series, and although it is my love, I think that deserves its own video. So, number 5 is The Lies of Lamora by Scott Lynch. This is the first book in the Gentleman Bastard series. There are 3 books written so far in the series, and I believe there's going to be 7 total. But, you know, if getting into a long series is daunting for you, I would say do not worry with this series. Even if you're only planning on reading the first book, it really holds up by itself. So, yeah, I would not worry about the whole series aspect of this if that is daunting to you. But this book follows a man named Lamora as he tries to pull a con on a nobleman and his wife. He does this with his group of friends, which are essentially his family. He's grown up with them, and they've kind of gone through their thief training together. So the story kind of switches between the present day, which is him pulling the con, and his childhood, where he grew up in the city that is has a very strong presence of thieves. They kind of have their own like thief leader. I guess it's a guild leader. I'm not sure exactly what that was called, but they have their own separate like group within this overarching guild of thieves, and they're called the Gentleman Bastards. So the story follows them as they're trying to pull this con. I've heard a lot of people say that they really enjoyed this series because of the friendships which develop, especially between Locke and Jean, which is the one of the other members of his crew, which I also really enjoyed that. But for me, what really was the draw for this story was, you know, the con itself. It was just really interesting to see it playing out. You know, Locke is just this really smart guy who's got this he's really good at planning ahead and, you know, planning these ruses, I guess. And yeah, so just like seeing them pull this off was really interesting to me. And with a lot of like heist books or movies, I feel like you know, the stakes don't seem that high because if the main characters are really smart, you kind of don't feel scared when they get into trouble, because you're kind of just like, oh, this is probably part of the plan. You probably already planned for this. They're gonna have no trouble getting out. They'll just think their way out, which I did not feel with this book. You kind of get the impression that while he came up with this elaborate plan, he doesn't really have everything under control. And there are a lot of instances in the book where you're kind of like, how are they going to get out of this one? And so yeah, the stakes remained really high throughout this whole book, which, I don't know, just really kept me engaged and drew me in. So that's number 5, The Lies of Lamora. Next on this list, number 4 is Small Gods by Terry Pratchett. I do not have a copy of this book with me, but here's a picture of the cover. If you know anything about Terry Pratchett, basically his main body of work is a series of books that exist in this world called Discworld. Discworld is a universe or planet, I don't know, where the world is a flat disc, and it is carried by elephants, which stand on the back of a turtle as it flies through space. So, very interesting concept right off the bat. It's definitely absurdist fantasy book, or series, and there are a lot of books in this series, although they're not chronological. So a lot of them are kind of grouped into story arcs, and this particular book, Small Gods, is a standalone. I've only read a couple of his books, but I'm planning on reading more, and I loved Small Gods in particular. This book is about, you know what, I'm just gonna give you, I feel like the themes are more of an important, way to describe this book than the actual plot. It's basically about, I think, well, what I got from it was that it's about like institutions of religion versus, personal beliefs of religion, I guess. So I think it's kind of a commentary on religious institutions, which I thought was very interesting, and I really like this book because, going into an absurdist fantasy series, you kind of expect it to be like kind of meaningless, I guess, maybe. At least that's kind of what I thought. I thought it was just gonna be a fun book to read, kind of silly, which it was, but there's also these like deeper meanings behind at least the books that I've read in the series. I think he puts a lot of his own beliefs into his books. So this was a book I really loved. Really made me think about things while also just was very enjoyable. There you have it. Number 4. Okay. Number 3 is Children of Time. I do not remember the author right now, but I will put the cover over here. This is the one sci-fi book on my list, because I read a lot of fantasy, but I've been starting to get a little more into sci-fi, and this book, Children of Time, I could not put down. I do this thing where when I'm reading a book, I'm like constantly checking how many pages are left for some reason, like not because I'm not interested in the book or I want it to end really, I'm just kind of like checking my progress, and I'm like, oh, I'm like halfway done, I'm 3/4 of the way done. So I'm like, I don't know, for some reason I'm always checking the pages, but I didn't do this with this book because I just like did not want it to end. It also just like really immersed me, which doesn't always happen when I read a book. It was very easy to become immersed in this book. So basically what this book is about, there's kind of like 2 perspectives. The first one being there's an Ark ship which has left Earth, carrying humans, because Earth has been destroyed, and this is their last-ditch effort to preserve some kind of humanity on some other planet. So they're trying to find some of the terraformed planets, which were terraformed thousands of years ago and then abandoned because of reasons that they'll get into in the book. I don't really want to go into that right now, but so they're trying to find these previously terraformed planets. And then the other perspective is the inhabitants of one of these terraformed planets, and those inhabitants are spiders. So it's a very, I don't know, a very original perspective there, because you see the spiders growing from, what we see as spiders on Earth to just this very evolved spiders. You see them evolve their own culture, language, communities. So you get this really interesting perspective of like sentient life that isn't human, and how that would work, and how that would grow. And they end up, maybe I shouldn't get into that, but it's not really a spoiler. They end up developing some technology which is similar to Earth technology, but they do it in very different ways because they're obviously spiders. So their whole perspective of the world is very different. And that's kind of what made this book so good, was just seeing this civilization evolve in a way that you would not expect. So loved this book, and that's number 3 on my list. Moving on to number 2, I actually do have a copy of this book. I got it from thriftbooks.com, not sponsored, but after I read it, actually, because I just wanted to have a copy of it. It was really good. It's The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This book is also in a series. It's a trilogy. It's called the Broken Earth Trilogy. And it's kind of a unique book because a lot of the book is written in the second person, which I've not seen before. And I've heard some people say that it was off-putting to them, but I would say if it is off-putting to you when you start this book, just go power through it because it makes sense. Like, there's a reason behind it. It's not just kind of, in there just to make it different and quirky. But there's they actually explain why it's second person, which, was very cool. It was very interesting. So there's kind of some mystery to unravel with that aspect of the book. Basically, the main idea, I guess, of the book is survival in a apocalyptic world, where every so often there's these huge disasters which wipe out a lot of the Earth's population, and so during the times in between these disasters, there have to be the different communities prepare and find ways to cope with the coming disasters. And yeah, so there's the magic in it is kind of like Earth magic, I guess, because it's kind of like Avatar a bit, the magic side of it, because they do have control over elements, but not all elements. So yeah, but I think that's probably one of the better comparisons for the magic system in this book. I think it also could be considered sci-fi. I did count it as fantasy, but this could also definitely be considered sci-fi because you kind of have this apocalyptic Earth type of thing, which is definitely more of a sci-fi genre type, I guess. So, Fifth Season. Why I really liked this book, partially because of unraveling the mystery of why it's written in second person. I thought that was really interesting. I think that's kind of a theme for me. I like it when I don't know what's happening. I like trying to figure out some sort of mystery. As soon as I know there's some sort of secret that I don't know, I want to know it, so it makes me want to keep reading. The way they treated gender in this book I thought was really good. There's a trans character actually, which they just, I think they treated that subject really well in this book. It's not really at the forefront at all. It's just kind of there, there's a trans character, which I thought was really interesting. And, in a lot of fantasy, they keep the same gender roles for no reason, I feel like, because, you could do whatever you wanted with these worlds you create, and yet they keep some of the same, structures in place that are oppressive to people, which makes sense in some stories, but in some stories it's not necessary, and just to see that completely subverted sometimes is very nice. Which I wouldn't say this completely subverts it, but it's just the main character is a woman who's just a very strong character. I'm not making sense anymore. I'm just rambling. That's okay. Anyway, Fifth Season. Very good book. Should definitely read it. The rest of the books in the series are also very good, but this one actually I think was the best in the series. Maybe. The second was also very good. Alright, anyway. Moving on. Number 5 is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. Okay, I loved this book. I read it a few weeks ago. I picked it out from the library because I liked the cover of it. I did not know anything about it going in. I read part of the blurb on the book jacket, but I didn't read the whole thing because I didn't want anything spoiled, because sometimes they kind of go into some spoilers. I don't know. Is that what I'm doing now? I guess I'm kind of spoiling some stuff. Not really, though. No spoilers. No real spoilers. Okay, Anyway. So I got this from the library because I like the cover, and I just loved it. It immediately became my favorite, or one of my favorite books that I've read. And so basically the background is that it's historical fantasy, which I don't think I've actually read before, but I actually really enjoyed. It's historical fantasy set in China in the 1200s, I believe, during a dynasty shift. And it follows the main character, Ju, as she tries to become great, even though her destiny told her that she would be nothing. So she does this by trying to steal her brother's destiny. So she has to basically pretend to be a man. So it's got some like Mulan vibes there, but definitely not the exact same story in any way at all. It's kind of like the main concept who gives Mulan vibes, but beyond that, it's very different. But what I love so much about this book was just that there was not one but two genderqueer characters in this book. Ju was one of them, and then there's another, which I will let you discover. But I just had not encountered that before in adult fantasy. I think a lot of, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist out there, I'm sure it does, but I just hadn't encountered it before, and just to see that kind of representation in adult fantasy in particular, because let's face it, young adult does not get taken seriously a lot. It was just really amazing to see it, and it felt really good to have that out there. And I also thought it was done really well, the way they did it. It made sense why each character was genderqueer, and it felt very natural. Didn't seem like it was just in there just to have it. It really integrated with the story well. So through this, it was able to kind of talk about some of the like internal issues surrounding being genderqueer, some of like the uncertainties there. So just really powerful story. So that was the main reason I really loved it. I have to say that I don't think this book was like more like better written than a lot of the other ones I've read, or like had, I don't know, just like, I don't think that this book is objectively better than the other books I read. It was more of like a really spoke to me kind of book. So in terms of writing quality, it's very well written, and the story is very interesting as well. But just a little disclaimer, if you don't love it as much as I did, then that's okay, I understand. But this was my favorite book that I read this year. So that being said, I hope some of these books intrigue you, make you want to read them as well. So thanks for watching, and subscribe, I guess. There will probably be more videos coming similar to this. So thank you.